14th. Oh, thank you, Pam. The meeting's being recorded now. Do we have a motion related to the minutes?
Yes, I move the minutes be approved.
Thank you, Jane. Do we have a second?
I'll
Come on
second.
now. Thank you. Okay, Bill, seconds. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Nay. We have approved the minutes. The next item is the consultant contract, which Krista circulated on Saturday. Has everybody had a chance to read the letter to the Board of Selectmen and the proposed contract? Krista, would you like to make any comments?
No, I mean, I'm happy to answer any questions if anybody had questions or was unclear about anything, but this is a contract with an architectural firm called Amenta Emma, who has done other architectural work in New Canaan, including Canaan Parish, so they're very familiar with New Canaan and affordable housing, to help us do some more detailed analysis of the sites that we've narrowed down in our site selection subcommittee. And so it's due right now to go before the Board of Selectmen on August 19th. And I just wanted to, I will attend that meeting. I just wanted to be able to present to the Board of Selectmen that the Affordable Housing Commission fully supports this plan of action. So I just wanted to bring it up here in case anybody had any issues. And so I'm not lying on the 19th.
Any questions for Krista on what she wrote in the letter or the contract?
I do have one question.
Yep.
So when we talk about the lumberyard lot, obviously any sort of development there isn't just about, is it just about like one affordable project within that large lot? Or is it, you know, like the fact that, because I guess that's my concern, is that we're looking at this as like in a vacuum without considering the entire space. And I wonder whether that's going to make it an apples to apples comparison when we're thinking about any of the other locations.
I mean, I think that's to be determined. That lot obviously can support more than the other lots just because of the size of it. So, you know, I think that the task that we're asking the consultant to complete is to help us understand these different sites and what their yield could be. But I think with the lumberyard, you're right, it could yield more than just multifamily units. It could yield a whole mixed use commercial component as well. And, you know, but then it comes down to who's building that. Does the town really want to be involved in that? All of that. So I haven't ruled out the possibility that it could include more than just the multifamily, but I don't think that this contract is really going to focus on the other aspects of what it would include.
Okay.
I think it would be helpful to at least ask them to put this phase one in the context of what else might go there. The rest could be quite loose, but you'd want to think about how this phase one fits into a jigsaw of future patterns of development there.
Okay. Noted.
So picking up on that point, you know, really, Chris, what you just said about future patterns for development. I mean, I don't see it as the lumberyard lot. I mean, I see it from Acme all the way down to Starbucks on both sides of the road. And I think it's just, you know, I think the town ought to have a grand plan.
Yeah.
I would think, I mean, they may. I'm not trying to be critical. I'm just telling you what I think. And, you know, if I was a betting person, I, you know, probably would bet that Acme would be, one, maybe not be there long term, but two, be more than happy to move to a different facility, you know, maybe in the lumberyard lot as part of a multi-layer construction. So I don't, and, you know, there are probably not a lot of little towns like New Canaan that have a car dealership. And I just don't know how that really all gets considered. And if it's part of this, that's fine. And if there's some other way of looking at it, but I just think we ought to be more holistic when we're looking at our prime real estate.
So I mean, this specific contract is just about looking at sites and internal to what could be done on those sites themselves. I do think the point you're making is valid, and when we choose a site, that one in particular, but perhaps some of the others as well, the town may proactively want to do some sort of what would be called like a small area plan to re-envision. I mean, I've even thought that depending on what happens with Weed and Elm, I mean, this is kind of in the area you're talking about, that the town should, if that turns out to be something beyond what we ever expected, which is now highly likely, we should undertake some sort of planning process to re-envision that end of Elm Street all the way up to Weed Street, because now the circumstances have changed and we should probably adapt and reconsider what we want that to be. So I do think, I mean, there's not money in this contract for what you're talking about, but I do think that's a logical step down the road, is that the town, once we start to identify specific parcels for development, if that was not the intended plan in our last POCD, which I'm not sure for any of these lots, that would be the intended plan in the last POCD, that we then update that with a different thought process.
Yeah, Chris, I understand what you're saying. I guess, I think if this was sort of my town and my company, which is not, I think I'd really first want to understand, from Elm Street, the whole length of that road, all the way down to, from Weed Street all the way down to Starbucks, and just have a grand plan before I would ask anybody to tell me, what we could do around the lumberyard. I mean, that's just me. I'm not saying what the contract's wrong. I'm saying I disagree with the contract, but for me, I think it's sort of step 2 rather than step 1.
I don't disagree with you. Unfortunately, things like this happen all the time in municipal government. And, what we call planning sounds proactive. And a lot of time it is coming in on the back end and seeing what's happened and figuring out how to make it a more cohesive whole. So, I mean, I hear what you're saying. I don't think if we're trying to get something built for 2032, this is the moment to be undertaking a small area plan for any of the parts of town that we may consider building in, but I do think it should be done.
It might kick off a discussion. If that happens to be the site that we choose, it might kick off a broader discussion about how that area looks and what's the zoning and what kind of uses we want to encourage.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that's natural. I mean, we have not talked about it at the Planning Commission, but I even think of the development that's being built over at Burtis Avenue, and that's going to change that end of Burtis Avenue. And, we had never envisioned Burtis Avenue as anything different than what it's always been, the New Canaan Forge and the dry cleaner and the nail salon. And some of that will happen organically. The real estate market will take care of it. But if the town has specific standards that they want to incorporate in terms of streetscape or otherwise. So yes, oftentimes development catalyzes planning, and I agree. Ideally, it would be the other way around.
I was just wondering if there was a way to limit the scope on it, I guess is my point, or is there a scope limit on it? Like, is it X number of units? Is it no more than 2? Because there are other things we would be considering in that location. It is the most prime location, and that's not our domain to decide overall. More your so because you're P&Z, but as an affordable housing committee, it's not necessarily our domain to really decide that entire location as to how it would be treated.
So the contract is a little more generic than that. I mean, it basically says they're going to look at all 3 locations, look at the base conditions in them, meaning topography, wetlands, etc., perform a site walk through each of them to observe the conditions and context of all 3 sites, with the Affordable Housing Committee if that's what we want. And then they're going to explore the maximum residential unit count, of what could be built based on different parking and building configurations. and then review those options with the members of the New Canaan Housing Subcommittee. And once, if we are able to narrow it down to one option, they'll do a 3D massing, building massing of the site based on the comments back from us. It wouldn't be architecturally significant. It would just kind of be boxes, but that's what the
Yeah,
back.
lines and boxes.
Right. So to answer your question, I mean, basically what we've told them is that to maximize the residential unit count so that we have the upper limit of what each of these sites could carry. I'm obviously a site like the lumberyard could carry, I have no idea, but a lot of units, like hundreds of units. I'm not sure that that's what we want to do. I definitely don't think we'd want to do that all at one time. So I think it's open to be massaged the way we want it to, but like I said, this contract's not going to consider, what mix of commercial tenants should be in there and how many commercial buildings and that type of thing. I think really we're just trying to figure out how many units can we build on each site, knowing that we need approximately 150 Hue points to the next moratorium. I suspect the lumberyard could get us more than one moratorium. Just
There might be a second contract that comes out of this if we pick the lumberyard, where you want to do more of a town plan phase development that includes other things. But I think we're trying to really just get a sense of what the art of the possible is in the sort of size and scope which works in New Canaan for these type of developments. This is not going to answer all of our questions, and we'll probably raise a number of questions. That might be a reason to look more at the lumberyard site lot. It might be a reason to look away from the lumberyard lot as a site.
It seems to me that, how many units do we need?
I
80.
mean, I would say 75, 80.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to me that maybe I'm missing something, it's pretty obvious that site can hold those units, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just what part of the site does 80 units in the sort of configurations that work in New Canaan with parking? How much of the site does it take up?
Yeah,
And
so,
that's really the question.
so would part of the contract be a statement that there must be at least X number of spaces available for commuters, for an example?
Oh, yes, right now the contract's written that there's intended to be no net loss of commuter parking in any of the sites.
Commuter
So
parking.
so I mean, you need to be able to design the number of units that could be there with parking to service those units and provide all of the units that will be lost theoretically, or that we haven't lost any units for the commuter parking.
Yeah. And if we were to build another level, a second level or a third level, it's fundamentally building additional land which we could then sell to an Acme or sell to whomever, Walter Stewart, whoever wanted to move there. How does that get, from an economic standpoint, how do we really get input on let's build the units we need, whatever the number is. How do we maximize the economics for the town? So everything's just not an added cost.
I think that's beyond our remit, to be honest.
Well,
yeah, I mean, I think if this somehow becomes a mixed use project, like let's say the lumberyard is the preferred alternative when we get to the end of this, and we say, hey, we recognize the site is so valuable and is more than just multifamily, it should have commercial component, whatever. I mean, as Chris already alluded to, I think you're getting to another stage of this where you have another contract and possibly a bigger town process to figure out what we would want to be there. And given that the town owns it, at the end of the day, the town could do an RFP to solicit the right builder, like what's been done down in Darien with the Corbin district to get it under construction, to bring in the types of retailers we're saying we want. I think all of that is wonderful. And this is the one thing that scares me about the lumberyard lot, and I've said it to most of you, is that it is such a valuable piece of land. I don't want to get it wrong. And yet we also have the gun to our head that we have to have 75 to 80 units in construction by 2032. So if it turns out that the conceiving planning process for what could be at the lumberyard project lot is going to take far longer than our time frame allows, we have to pencil that in as well, because you could easily spend 4 years master planning that site and you're not going to have any units CO'd by 2032.
And,
So I
and
agree
maybe
with
it
everything you
becomes our
said, but I guess-
2036 project. Sorry, Bill,
That's-
go
No, I
ahead.
was gonna say, I agree with everything Krista, I mean, I understand what you said, I agree with that, but it sounds to me like we could be pushing ourselves into a suboptimal outcome because we need those units and, I mean, which is
Well,
what I don't want to do. I don't have
It's
it
a
all.
reason, it's a reason not to progress with the lumberyard
Yeah.
lot. Maybe the conclusion is going to be, it's a good place to put affordable, but it has to be in the context of a larger redevelopment there. And, then push the right people in the town to take on that project so that in 2036, we could deliver affordable there, or 2034, 2035,
Yeah,
ahead of
yes,
2036.
good suggestion. Mhm.
To Bill's point, I mean, the fact that we've been doing that 100% affordable and we haven't necessarily increased our grand list by as much to overcome the costs that we're now incurring is another consideration as well, as we keep building all of these additional affordable units.
Well, I was thinking of that same point in the context of the school, right, that we're talking about. I mean, at some point, the numbers have to work.
Yeah. The school would be literally at the end of my backyard, but I don't think it's ever going to be there.
Never say never.
I don't think it would be bad for the price of my house. I'm in the back. I'm on the Michigan roadside, so I would be in the emergency exit part, but don't think it would be the worst thing for property values, a walk to elementary school. That said, I don't think it's going to happen.
I'm glad we don't have to make that decision.
Yeah.
We got enough problems, right?
Back
Um,
to this conversation, I think what everybody's saying makes a ton of sense. But to remind us all, big picture, we were trying to find town-owned land that could conceivably accommodate affordable housing. And I believe that the scope of this first consulting project is narrow enough so that we're really trying to see these 3 lots viable, and in what way, what's the maximum capacity, what are the issues we hadn't thought about with each, et cetera. And I agree that with at least that one, and maybe all 3, we need a larger context. Probably one is too small to have to discuss a whole lot of other stuff on it, but I don't think we need to make that decision now.
anything else before we vote? Okay, can I have a motion related to the consultant contract? Jane, do your thing.
Okay, I move that we approve the consultant contract.
All right, any second?
I'll second it.
Okay, Maria. Is that Maria?
No, that was Krista.
Sorry, Krista. That was Krista. Sorry. Trying to listen to voices. Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? All right, so unanimously approved. We go forth. Thank you, Krista, for putting that together. I do think this is going to be a very helpful first step, but just a first step on our way to figuring this out. Okay, next, the AHC letter to legislators. Thank you, everybody who provided input already. I think it's close to final. It probably needs another read over or two. There was a comment that came in, I think, from Jane, which that change has not yet been made, but I'll make it to fix some grammar there. Any general questions or comments?
I do have a question on page, I think it's page 3, regarding the R zoning regulations.
Would it be helpful for me to put it up on the screen?
Sure.
Okay. Now I actually have to figure out how to do that. Okay. I'm a Teams guy, so this is, I know it's possible.
Yeah, you see the little green square down at the bottom that says share?
I do not see a green square at the bottom that says share. Now, sorry, I had it shrunk. That's why I wasn't seeing it. Okay, I think that's it. I think now shared.
Yep.
So, page 3, bottom, you said?
No, near the top, the middle housing is a primary source of units. Okay. So a couple things. So it provides ample opportunities for older residents to downsize. It does provide opportunities, but it's also for young people to get into our town as an entry point as well. I just, if we're trying to encourage later on a recommendation to provide more hue points for seniors in an equitable way, I'm not sure saying that we provide ample opportunities for residents already helps our argument.
Should we say it also provides opportunities for older residents to downsize and remain in, well, to the first part of the sentence relates to rental units. We could add something there about providing an entry point for younger residents. And then we can say it also provides maybe not ample opportunities for older residents to downsize and remain in town and stay age.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me try working on this on the fly. Jane, watch closely here because there might be some grammar problems. That's rough, but okay.
And then in the next paragraph down where we're talking about the some provisions facilitating middle housing were removed in 1980s and 1990s. I hadn't heard about that. Krista, can you give a little info on that?
So we don't really have any zoning regulations. So I was trying to work around the language that was there to make it accurate. It's not exactly what I would have written was if I were writing from scratch. We don't have any zoning regulations right now that incentivize what I understand middle housing to be, which would be, less than 5 units, but maybe even 6 or 7.
Isn't that our B-res?
B-res allows single family homes and 2-family homes.
But we also have condo developments that happen in B-res.
Not legally. I mean, those may be pre-existing non-conforming uses, but we would not, we would allow 2-family to come in. Condo is an ownership model. So you could build 2 houses on one lot and be res and sell them as a condo, but there's only 2 units and you can't build more than that.
So all of the townhouse developments predate
right.
some zoning change.
So, right, that's what I'm trying to say here. I mean, because it had been very effusive that, our regulations allow all this middle housing. And the reality is at this moment in time, they don't. They did in the past, which is probably why you see what you see on the ground, because none of that's turned over, especially if it's condos. It's nearly impossible to turn over in terms of redevelopment. We would like to get there again with the update we're about to take to our zoning regulations, but I can't point to any sections of the B-res zone or even the apartment or multifamily zone right now that specifically would encourage middle housing.
Well, I would think the bottom of Harrison had a condo development. Is that because it was 2-unit attached? Was that what it was? It was
Are you
like,
talking about the one on corner of Don River and Maine?
no, bottom of Harrison and, Maine.
So that may be in the apartment or multifamily zone. The multifamily zone in particular is spotty to cover old things that were developed that no longer really meet any of the regulations. I'd have to look at the map to look at that exact parcel and tell you what the zoning is, but what I can tell you is no, you couldn't build that today in the B residence zone.
I thought that street is B-res.
There's a small multifamily building on VD Street. You can see it from East Ave. It's that side.
Yes,
That's new.
that's new. And I mean, on VD Street is not all residential, as evidenced by some of the other things there. So I don't know. That's got to be in one of the commercial zones.
So
And
I
we
guess,
we do allow multifamily in commercial zones as a mixed use. It can't, as of right now, it can't be singular. Like you can't just say, oh, this is the residential, the A retail zone. I want to build only multifamily. But if you want to build ground floor retail and upper floor multifamily, that's allowed.
because I guess I'm just not sure what it's helping us to write this in there. Because it's sort of like undercutting our argument that we've been
Yeah.
doing.
I mean, I'd be fine with taking the bullet
Hmm.
out. I was just trying to make it accurate if we were insistent on keeping it in, but perhaps by making it accurate, I made it not useful.
Yeah, I mean, it is good to be accurate. We want to be accurate.
Like accurate. So yeah, but I guess I'm just not sure that from the sum part on some of the provisions, it helps our argument at all.
Well, so I think
mean,
the choice is to pull
I
the
think
whole bullet.
The better thing I would suggest, if I could just finish my thought here, is if we said, we've just finished our plan of conservation and development, and that we're currently looking to update our regulations based on our current POCD, which I think speaks to the fact that we are trying to do that planning, which we hope everybody should be doing, right? Every 10 years. So you do your POCD and then you redo your regs based on that at a minimum. Not that you can't always do it, but it gives you the opportunity to update your regulations, especially since you've just updated your POCD that talks about how you want to see the town develop.
Yeah, I think that's fine. Elsewhere, when we talked about transit-oriented development, I kind of backed it into the same sort of language, which is that our currently most recently adopted POCD talks about transit-oriented development, and we'll be moving towards zoning to help implement that. So this could take that same language, or we could leave it simple and say historically New Canaan has had, a lot of middle family type development. We don't have to say when it was built. Just because it was built 50 years ago, does that mean it's any less valuable?
It's actually not, to your point. Yeah. I mean, and that's what makes New Canaan unique relative to other towns even within Fairfield County, is that we do have so much single family attached townhome development, which is of a lower cost. It reflects the fact that we can't have on-street parking. So it allows for off-street parking. It's a cheaper cost of development. I think we've developed it smartly within our town. But I think it's important that we, don't undercut our argument here. So that's my only concern.
So Chris, which way do you want to go? Do you want to talk about how it was in the past, or what we're
This
heading
is
towards
not-
in the future?
I want whatever the consensus is. I have no strong views here. I want it to be accurate. And I want it to be supportive of what we're trying to say here, but I don't have a strong view as to which way we go.
What
Can
do we lose if we get rid of it? How does it hurt our case?
It doesn't. I mean, implicitly, the fact that it's here means it has to have been encouraged at some point.
Yeah.
I don't think highlighting that we turned our back on this 20 years ago, 25 years ago is necessarily our best foot forward, but
I mean, I
um,
think the first sentence is fine. We can leave
maybe
that.
we do both. Maybe historically zonings encourage these types of developments and recent POCD. We'll make some updates related to the recent POCD to encourage more.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
I think this bullet point maybe could just be very simple about what, sorry, my dog is being super annoying. We kind of talk about what our middle housing stock is now and the need that it's, I don't know that we need to say that historically we've included it in zoning regulations and all that. We could even just say that going forward, we're about to embark on a regulation update, and middle housing is a focus of that. Cause it's kind of like, this is what we have,
Right.
here's what we're doing going forward. And it demonstrates that New Canaan not only has it, or, how about this demonstrates that New Canaan not only has a lot of middle housing, but is actively working towards adding more. Does that make
Mhm.
sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe just have it be that we're, undertaking a zoning regulation review and not edit, but update. And, we hope that they'll address, or middle housing should be a focus of that or something like along those lines. Keep it really simple.
So you're combining the third bullet and the sentence that comes after it.
I would just make the third bullet the really simple piece. That New Canaan is,
Yeah.
in like,
Do we have
Just
a-
forward-looking,
yeah.
just
Yeah.
forward.
And then I like that last sentence. I would just say this demonstrates that New Canaan, not only allows, but is actively working towards adding more middle housing. So it's like, we've had this, it's, a significant part of our current rental units in town. And we're not even satisfied with that. We're gonna undertake to update our zoning regulations so that we can encourage it further. So I like that conclusory sentence there.
Okay, I'll do something better on that and circulate it.
Chris, did we agree on is it a defined term, middle housing development?
So that's a good question.
Yeah, it varies place to place, I think. What do you
So,
think?
yeah,
Yeah, I guess
Krista was talking about it as 5 units and below. The HB 5002 talked about 9 units and below. Other places I saw it defined as 30 units and below. It seems like there's no absolute standard.
So it has
Um,
nothing to do with the age of the people living in them?
No,
or
it
the
has to.
economics or anything of that nature, just the size?
It
Yeah.
comes from a book called The Missing Middle, I think.
Yeah.
Where it emphasized that our suburban sprawl makes it that we don't have walkable communities, and if we encouraged more of the type of developments you have in town with various forms of small multifamily buildings, then you would have more density and more walkable communities.
So I mean, I guess, look, I mean, you are all much more, all of you are much more experts in this area, but when I see something like that, what I think of is individual builders doing what they want to do, 5 units, 9 units, 12 units, whatever the number is, and so what I really say is, what's the plan for the town? How does that fit in? And so, I mean, many of you have much more experience in terms of the whole zoning process and everything, but I mean, I don't necessarily think having hodgepodge of buildings, 5, 12, 15 units without much guidance is a good idea personally. I'm not against multiple units. I'm just not sure, what are we really saying?
I think it's really about designating areas. Let's use an example of that, cross in VD
VD.
Street.
Yeah, right.
Which, there's certainly redevelopment to be done there. If we encouraged townhouse style redevelopment there rather than single family houses, then you'd have, more units and they'd be cheaper units and they would accomplish that goal of, both providing entry-level housing for younger people and providing some downsizing opportunities for older people. I'm at an age where friends of mine are downsizing and the condos in town are pricey on a per square foot basis because there's more people trying to buy them than there are those type of units available.
So the middle housing development, I understand what you said about VD and Cross. And I know the properties, reasonably well, like all of you do. I'm not sure middle housing development communicates anything to me on that. But, maybe it does to everybody else who's gonna read, in which case I'll be quiet. But I
So
don't think,
we picked up middle housing because it is one of the focuses of
Right.
HB 5002. So, the theory is that we need this overarching housing bill from the state, which, provides these difficult goals and some coercion and other things in order to develop this type of housing. And in reality, New Canaan as a town, compared to our peers, has actually quite a bit of this type of housing already. And we don't need coercion to get there. So that's, the reason we've picked middle housing as a concept and emphasized it was one of the cornerstones of HB 5002. And we're really saying, we got this. We don't need coercion.
Agree.
So
Yeah,
I mean,
well said.
I guess, as we lead into this, the other part of this is that when you look at 5,002, if we're really trying to have a conversation with the legislators about 5,002, one of the real issues with it is that 82% of the units are meant to be for people whose earnings are $0 to $30,000 of the fair share that's been allocated to us. Now, we don't have to build it. We know that it wasn't mandated in this year's version or the one we've seen so far. They took that language out where we had to provide economic incentive for that. But the concern is that those units won't be built because of the economics. And I don't know whether that makes sense to also put in here because that's really one of the biggest issues in that bill.
Yeah, I mean, we could add something. There is a lack of economic literacy in the way they presented it. The bottom line is in New Canaan, in our own housing authority's experience, it costs about $650 a unit to build, and that's going to be whether it's maybe a developer can shave a little bit off that price tag. Somebody's in the business with a supply chain that operates efficiently, but it's still going to be 550. Yet the numbers are that you need net operating income of about 6% of that for the project to be viable on today's interest rates and cap rates, and 550 times 6% is not a rent that a person on 30,000 a year can afford. And unless government intervenes, that's just the
Right.
facts. Those units are not getting built.
Which sort of goes to that point that I was making down below, where it's about the cost. There's infrastructure cost, but there's also the cost of maintaining those units, meaning the revenue flows. And that's where, towns like New Canaan get shortchanged always on vouchers or any of these, project vouchers or things like that, where if we got those, we would be, because otherwise there's no way those 82% units are ever going to get built, whether we would want to build them or whether a developer would want to come in and build them. They just would never make economic sense. So that's really one of the biggest problems with 5002. And I mean, if this letter is meant to discuss those kind of things of like, what was the issue with
Well,
It's not
this letter
really.
is meant to be kind of New Canaan's response or the New Canaan Affordable Housing Committee response. Getting it, we certainly can get into the economics. I think it creates a whole new section of letter. And I question when we get the letter out if we're embarking on that path. I guess we could call a
Yeah.
special meeting for the end of the month, but short of that, I don't know how we get the letter out.
Because I mean, otherwise it's really just saying, hey, this is what we're doing, leave us alone. But like it really doesn't address, really the issues with 5002.
Yeah, that's certainly an issue, and it's a path we could have gone down. I just don't know that, like, the New Canaan, there are more credible voices on that than the New Canaan Affordable Housing Committee that
Well, I guess
should be weighing
I'm just
in.
only because that's the part that relates to affordability, right? The other stuff, like whether it's as of right, I wouldn't opine on in this letter because we're Affordable Housing Committee, or the parking spots, let's say. That's not something I would, think that would make sense to put in here. But I think not talking about the fact that, the units that are developed, that there might be a way of, if you provide deeper affordable, that maybe you get more hue points, or somehow to incentivize towns to create more like that, more deeply affordable might be a way to do it. Because I think that that's part of the challenge here, is that I don't know that everybody's connecting the dots here, and no one's talking about the detail of what's in that bill. And that's one of the reasons this bill just doesn't work.
So I think we have a choice then. We go away and try and come up with that language and have another meeting, or we try and get the letter out without addressing that.
Is there, not to make this, I'm trying to make this simpler, not more complicated, but is there a third option where we get the letter out and then follow up with another letter on a, kind of a more specific topic about the finances? So that we can still get this out now?
Maria, do you have any sense of when this special session is going to be?
Soon.
There's a majority leaders roundtable on the 20th of August, so it's not going to be before that for sure. I don't know. It's hard to know. I haven't heard of a date that's been set yet.
Because we certainly want it out ahead of that.
Yeah.
Chris or
Maria,
Maria,
what are your
So
thoughts
wait.
about a separate letter?
I mean,
So-
aren't these letters, responses sort of just, dealing with part of the issues, and isn't there sort of a more holistic and response that the town should be writing, or maybe they are?
And maybe it's Scott who can write the economics one. He lives it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
I sort of feel like, we can sort of say whatever we want, we put a couple of words in, some of which we can't really define, and then someone else can do what they want. So I'm not quite sure, I'm not against the letter, I'm just not quite sure what it accomplishes.
Well, I think part of it is just making a record. And I think that that's important. And I think it's important for us as a committee to, I haven't really seen anything that's gone to Hartford that's accentuated the positive things that we're doing in this town, that set them forth, that said, here's what we've been doing. We are addressing, the governor comes here when we open Canaan Parish and says, New Canaan's a model for how to do this stuff. I've heard some of our legislators say that, but I haven't yet seen it down in black and white where they can easily reference something and be like, wow, this is everything that they're doing. And instead of just saying, for any legislation that comes out, no, 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 we say, here's what we're doing. Here's what's working for our town. Here's why this one size fits all approach doesn't work for towns like ours, but we're doing everything that we can. And there's a few simple, like before you go and pass a big legislation like 5002, there's some simple fixes that you could do that could help with affordability also. So maybe we, you know, like if we are an example of what we've done, I think it's important to put in one place, here's everything that we've done and we are doing. And the bill 5002 would really be punishing on a community like ours that's always been held up as a gold standard in Fairfield County for addressing affordability. So I do think, you know, sometimes you just have to make the record and come at it from like a positive place and say, you know, really put in black and white everything that we've accomplished and some little fixes we would make and try it so that it's very obvious we're trying to work with them rather than just constantly being resistant, right? So I do think there's value in that.
And the bill itself, it passed both the Assembly and the Senate,
Mhm.
but obviously, you know, they did it in a way where they didn't get pushback before they voted. They got pushback after they voted.
Right.
And letters like this will make our legislators think about their vote on the next time because they're going to think about it in the context of the towns they represent.
I mean, maybe, how about this? Because the bullet point number 7 that we have on page 4, where it says of vilifying the opposition, what if we just add a sentence in there that just says something about the fact that the fair share, you know, units that were allocated to New Canaan, you know, 82% of them, you know, at that 0 to 30% median income level could not be built without significant subsidies. And, you know, that's troubling to, you know, that it had the intention of creating affordability, but it didn't have a way that was actually going to provide the funding to ensure that it happened.
So maybe Maria, after the sentence where one of the last phrases is, it says it placed unfunded mandates on municipalities and harmed the quality of life for Connecticut residents. Maybe we say, like specifically, for example, the fair share provision and exactly what you said. For example, as one example, the fair share provision would have required 82% of, you know, this to be deeply affordable or 0 to 30% of the median income, which would be impossible for us to do without significant state funding.
Right.
Because then it's kind of addressing that unfunded mandate.
Yeah.
So I think we can just say as one example, and then we're leaving it kind of open for other issues that come up, but that's a very specific example that we're providing of the sort of unfunded mandate, not sort of, but the unfunded mandates.
Right.
Does that make sense
So,
there to put
as one
something-
example, the fair share requirement would, somebody say it again.
Maria says it perfectly. So Maria, what?
So
Sure.
the fair share allocation would have required 82% of the units.
Hold on.
All right, fair share allocation to New
Good.
Canaan.
I'll go back. Yep.
Would have required 82% of the units for residents earning $0 to $30,000.
How about we just say less than $30,000?
Okay.
Families or residents?
Yeah.
Residents would be
complicated.
vague that way, right?
Well, I mean, a resident is a person.
Well, it's roughly, it's a sliding scale based on the family, so it's not
Yeah,
just,
family size matters. It gets very complicated.
yeah.
Maybe just say for those making less than $30,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you can even say, then you can even start another sentence and say, you know, given the economic realities, this would be impossible to accomplish without significant state subsidies.
Yep.
Does that make sense, Maria?
Yes.
Yeah, it makes sense to me, and I think it's good.
Yeah.
The only problem I have with it is that, I think the town should have, a proper submission or proper study that really, I mean, when you talk about the number of units, when you talk about the cost of it, when you talk about having a family, when you talk about the implications on the school system, I mean, what it does is it changes the economics of the town. And, maybe the town is just as good as, 5 years from now or 10 years as is today, but maybe it's totally different. And I mean, I really do think that someone on Deanna's staff or somebody should be really looking at this. And I just don't think you can say, well, it'll all work out, because I don't think it'll all work out.
Well, again, I think Scott is, who's not on Deanna's staff, but he's best positioned to talk about the economics of, the cost of building and, what load NOIs, do in terms of financing options.
Yeah, but I don't think I mean, I just think that's a really small part of it, financing options, right? I mean, it's sooner or later, you got to pay for the financing has to be paid for. I
Yeah.
mean,
And
And
It's
I mean,
not
it's just a matter whether you're paying for it today or paying for it over 10 years, but we still are the number one town. We still have more debt per capita than anybody. And I honestly don't believe that a lot of people fully understand the economics.
I
And
think
and I
Daria
really
might have
don't believe,
passed us, but
I really don't believe that the state legislatures understand it, at least based upon when I was on the audit committee, they came down to talk to us about, unfunded pension plans. And their suggestion was outlandish. And they backed off it. So my point is, I could be wrong, and that wouldn't be the first time. But I just think that somewhere, probably not our committee, someone really needs to take a holistic look at this from an economic standpoint. Because there's not one of us who could tell us what implications does this have on tax, the mill rate 10 years from now. Not just this proposal, but all the other proposals the town's dealing with.
well,
And
I
is
mean,
that
I
okay?
think the reality of the bill was that the fair share allocation was not mandatory. You were supposed to just encourage it, but nothing was going to happen unless money was going to be raining down on us to get it done, because these units are basically unfinanceable in any way. At that level of rent, your costs run in line with or higher than your rent. There's no net income.
right.
Mhm.
And there's no money going to be raining down on us.
Right.
Well, then they're not going to get built, and that's kind of the point here, is that it lays out this expectation of creating these affordable units that simply,
Don't-
is not going to accomplish anything.
Yeah.
I've been looking at the numbers under, it only goes back to 2002, but 2002 to 2024, 22-year period, 20,000 affordable units were created in Connecticut, period. Very, very few of those there's actually fewer deed restricted units now than there were in 2002. So very few of those are related to 830G.
Mm.
Because they expire.
Because they expire and they roll off. It's
Yeah.
a 40-year treadmill.
Yep.
So, there's just not, 830G has not actually accomplished a lot in terms of driving affordable.
And that's why this fair share does the same thing. So it's yet another treadmill. It's just more onerous.
It did work out that by 2052, if we keep trying to stay in moratorium, we will have 10%.
The silver lining.
That assumes no net change in net units. The only net units we're adding are those that are affordable. But
Oh.
so there's a massive assumption in there, but it's still better than I thought.
And our taxes are going up.
It's 560 units.
To get to the 10%.
I think it's
A lot.
560. It's 560 or 650. I can't
Fair,
remember
I
which,
think,
to be
was
honest.
fair share was 24%. So yet another reason not to like that.
Chris, everything you just said it seemed to me would be a good first paragraph that would just say, "Hey, you've had all these programs and everything and nothing's got accomplished. Maybe you ought to listen to us."
Well, so, yeah, I mean,
No, I mean, you know, sometimes you just got to tell people what you think.
you know, attacking 830B is 830G is, you know, that's howling at the moon at this point. Like they've just, you know, tried to massively up the ante
Yeah.
on the whole discussion. So I don't think criticizing 830G is a useful path. It'll just make us look like we're part of the problem.
Yeah, I think we should just really focus because there is going to be at some point a special session on this bill that was vetoed. And I think it's important for us to just sort of focus on that one in particular. 830G, you know, is constantly debated. We need to like the noise from this bill needs to go away before we can, you know, get to one that's
And
existing and where we have to operate under, right? Because right now this isn't law and we don't want it to
Yeah.
become law. And I think
and
you know.
And I think there's a chance to, you know, Hillary made some very good suggestions around improvements to 830G, which are in here, and that's, you know, a potential direction, but wholesale, you know, scrapping of 830G there's zero chance.
Yeah.
And the other thing a letter like this accomplishes is it sends a message to the state about whether we are partners that they might view as constructive or completely destructive, and they've been treating us as the latter. And I don't think we want to reinforce that impression. I don't think it does us any good.
Yeah.
Not true.
Who's signing
Hence, we're
it,
all
Chris?
here debating the subject tonight.
Chris, I have you up on my screen. Who's signing the letter?
Well, it is meant to be from all of us.
All of us individually. And is it right that it's coming directly from us opposed to the town? I mean, that just,
Yes.
So
why are we doing this versus the town?
The town did send, you know, elected officials in the town did send a letter when Lamont was considering vetoing, and they may be working on another letter. Deanna is aware of this letter and has seen it and was appreciative of our efforts to communicate what we're communicating. We can certainly encourage her to get something done on the economics of building those units. But, you know, things are happening. This is our answer.
Okay.
I will chase down everybody else. I'll do another. There's still that point that needs to be fully worked up. So I'll do another limited circulation of this, and then try and get everybody who wasn't on the call to sign off. Is everybody who is on the call happy with the letter as it is, at least as it will be when these changes are made?
Yeah.
I'll support it.
Okay, that's great. And I'll chase down the rest. So I think that's everything from me.
Chris, I appreciate
not-
this. I appreciate all the work that's gone into this.
I think everybody's added good comments.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah.
So it's a real group effort. So there is no public to have public comments, so we move to adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Sorry, who gave the original?
I think
Just
Hillary.
Hillary moved to adjourn.
Yeah.
Who
Bill
seconded?
Bill seconds.
Bill seconded with vigor. All right.